Welcome to my fourth British Touring Car preview and prediction show. Today we're looking forward to Oulton Park, which is the next event up in this year's Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. We've got plenty to look forward to, so let's crack on with it. I'm your host Louis Hedge from Hedge Works Motorsport. On today's show, I rate how the top 10 drivers in the standings have done so far this season. We also hear from you guys at home, the fans, in the British Touring Car fans prediction about who's going to be scoring well at Oulton Park and who we should look out for. And to finish, we talk to British Touring Car driver who had a brilliant weekend last time out at Brands Hatch, Tom Oliphant. So I thought we'd start the video in a slightly different way. We'll be hearing from lots of other people a bit later on, but as we're coming to the end of the summer break, we're ready to get back to the action at Oulton Park this weekend. So I'm going to start off by doing something a bit different, as I say, and I'm going to rate, in my opinion, of course, the top 10 drivers, how they've done so far this season. I know we've only had 3 races, but this has obviously been classed as the summer break. It's usually a bit more in the middle of the season. So Ashley Sutton leads the way. He's had a good start. It's been very solid. A couple of wins. Thruxton pretty unlucky, in particular, obviously in race 1 and also race 2. Race 3, he won it, which was great to see. Got the strategy right in race 3, so pretty good season. Very strong Snetterton, and just sort of a, as I said, damage limitation for Thruxton. Very strong Snetterton, and a pretty, good consistent round at Brands Hatch last time out as well. Tom Ingram is second. Now he's having a brilliant season. I think a lot of people, there was a lot of debate in the off season how Tingram was going to get on. He was very at home with Hedge Works Motorsport and with Toyota. He was, with them for years, and no one knew. In all honesty, no one knew how he was going to get on. He got that He had a pretty solid first round at Thruxton. Got some good solid points. Got a podium. So that was good to see. Then obviously first win for Accelerate Motorsport and Hyundai at Snetterton, which was a really cool thing to see, trackside. And obviously another win wasn't far around the corners. He won again at Brands Hatch Indy in race 2 last time out, so he's done a good job, as is Josh Cook. He sits third at the minute in the driver standings. Fantastic Thruxton, great way to start the season. 2 race wins. That's just what he needed to do just to get started. Had a pretty difficult Snetterton. Pretty tough, really. Struggled in qualifying. That's what then sort of made his weekend a lot more difficult, because had a not great qualifying, and then sort of he had to work towards race 3, which he did. He got 4th place in race 3, which was good to see. And he was pretty strong at Brands Hatch also. He got some fairly good points as well. Colin Turkington is 4th. You generally see him a bit higher. He's had a pretty tough start to the season. Fairly unlucky. I know we are only 3 race meetings in. Tough Thruxton, got caught up with Ash Sutton in race 1, which gave him a penalty, and that sort of then delayed his progress for the rest of the day. Pretty good Snetterton, as you'd expect. He always goes round well there, as does for BMW. But it's pretty good around most places, really. Won the first race, second in race 2, got some good points in race 3 as well. Brands Hatch, though, really didn't go his way. He only scored a couple of points, which is not something we often see from Colin or any of the BMW drivers, to be fair. So difficult round at Brands Hatch. But I'm sure he'll bounce back, and I think Oulton Park, he's had lots of success there. He had his 50th British Touring Car win there in 2019. So I think as long as it's dry, I think he's my tip for pole position, to be honest. The car's pretty light. He always goes well there, so I think he should be one to look out for. But it's not been a great start to the season so far for Colin Turkington. In 5th spot is Jake Hill. Now he's had a brilliant start to the year. A bit unlucky at times, but 3 third places at Thruxton. Now that is championship contending kind of performances. 3 podium is very rare in British touring cars. Okay, Snetterton, we always sort of knew it was going to be difficult with the amount of weight he had in the car. Pretty good qualifying though. I think he qualified he was 8th, which was a very good performance considering he had that much ballast on in the car. Okay, race 1 got some points. I think they just got the setup wrong in race 2 to do with the tyres. He just went backwards after sort of halfway, so that didn't really go to plan. And Brands Hatch, he got some solid points. Race 1 was particularly good. Race 2 was a real shame. He was right up there in contention in the top 5, I think it was. And then he got a puncture, but that's the way it goes. But still, he had a brilliant drive in race 3, getting up to 13th when he was, I think it was 13th from when he was starting like right near the back. So that was good to see. So Jake Hill is a real front runner, I think, this year, and he's been a bit unlucky, but he's definitely had a better start to the season this year than he did last year. Tom Oliphant is sick. Now he's had a funny one, very difficult for Uxton. Oliphant, he's had some really bad luck recently. Good qualifying for Thruxton, pretty good qualifying. Then got caught up in an incident, had to avoid someone else on lap 1 at Thruxton in race 1. Remember, if you have it kind of derails your day if you have a difficult race 1, because then you've got to do all the work without a good start. Obviously, then Snetterton was okay, got a bit caught up in an incident in race 3 with Ollie Jackson, so that was pretty unlucky when, I think he could have definitely won that one in race 3, but as we all know, British touring cars can be very difficult. You can be very unlucky in it. But Brands Hatch, he did a fantastic job. Brilliant start off the line for race 1. Won the first race. He led all of the second race until about the final lap, and Ingram went for sort of a last lap manoeuvre, which did pay off, which was pretty clean, and he dropped to 3rd because Ash Sutton snuck through on the final corner, which was very exciting to see. So yeah, Tom Oliphant, it just shows you can have a really unlucky start, but at some point it's going to come back to you, and you're gonna hopefully bounce back, which he has done at Brands Hatch in great style really, and he did a good job. And another driver that did a good job at Brands Hatch was Dan Rowbottom. Now, to anyone that criticised Team Dynamics or Halfords for signing Dan Rowbottom, I think now has sort of seen how good a driver he is. I was speaking to Stuart from Is It Fast, and we were saying that Dan is a really good driver. Perhaps his first season in British touring cars, the results don't show that, but Thruxton, really strong first round, got 4th, which is his best finish in the championship. Okay, Snetterton, a bit unlucky at times, I think, but had some weight in the car, so just sort of getting his head round that, I suppose. And so yeah, okay, Snetterton got some good points, but Brands Hatch, pole position, his first pole position in the British touring car championship, which was really good to see. And of course got his first podium and really fought back for it. It wasn't a simple drive because he was on pole. He must have dropped to about 8th coming into Druids on lap 1. So had a really tough first lap, start to the race, and then he just fought back. The pace looked really good in the car. Obviously we saw both him and his teammate Gordon Shedden pushing on. They're both on the podium, so that was good to see for Dan Rowbottom. And yeah, he was flying at Brands Hatch. Next up is Jason Plato in 8th. Now this is another funny one. Lots of these drivers have been a bit up and down this season, apart from sort of your top 2, Sutton and Ingram, who have been very consistent through all of the races. They've only sort of had 1 or 2 bad races between them. But Plato, a brilliant start to the season. That's just what I was looking forward to seeing JP back in the championship. I think the year off did him the world of good. Fantastic first round at Thruxton, podium, big points, and then we got Snetterton, and we don't know what was going on with his car. From what I've heard, it was oversteering a lot, coming out of the twisty corners on the infield, like the Agostini hairpin corners like that. He was all over the place on the back end, and they were just I think they were just a bit confused on what was going on. So a pretty quiet and forgettable Snetterton really, and then he bounced back fairly well. Struggled in qualifying again. I think he was about 15th or somewhere around there in qualifying. So not a great qualifying for JP at Brands Hatch. But then, like you sometimes have to do, look towards race 3. Slowly started to move forward in the races. Stayed out of trouble. Got the reverse grid pretty well, and he was 4th in race 3. There was a photo finish between him and Aidan Moffat for 3rd place, which was cool to see. So almost got his 2nd podium of the year, but he needs to now, those drivers who are sort of at the bottom of the top 10 need to now sort of start closing in again before the top 5 or so then pull away. And in 9th at the minute is Jack Goff. Now he's done a very good job indeed. Got some very good points at Thruxton. Of course, it's the first few races for the new Cupra run by Team Hard. Now, Thruxton, they did well, or Jack did really well. He got some good points, was consistently up in the top 10 at times, so that was good to see. I think he's one of the few drivers this season that scored in every race so far, which is really good to see. Which is, consistency is what you need. But obviously, standout performers this year is him at Brands Hatch, the most recent event, race 3. You're going to argue it was a race 3, it was reverse grid, but a podium's a podium, and that will do the world of good for him and Team Hard with the new Cupra. They're still developing it, so Goff's doing a brilliant job at the minute. I think just keep on scoring points. A few more podiums will come, and maybe even a race to win come the end of the year if the stars align and reverse grid or whatever. And the car's great. We've seen it in other touring car championships across Europe. Jack's a very good driver. Multiple race winner, so he's definitely one to look out for. To be this high up already this season he's doing a good job. And to round out the top 10, it's Rory Butcher in the Toyota. He's had a funny season, as I said earlier, like lots of these drivers. He had a fairly tough Thruxton. He had good qualifying. I think he was about 5th in race 1. So that was a good result for him. I mean, it all went wrong in race 2, really. It all kicked off with the turn 1 incident, and he just had a big slide by the looks of things. I think he did get a bit sandwiched by 2 of the other cars, but that's the way it goes. He had a very big off and then couldn't really get anywhere in race 3, got caught up in someone else's incident as well. So yeah, Rory's had a funny one. Snetterton was a big step in the right direction. Another first podium for him at Toyota, which is cool to see. So yeah, he got a podium at Snetterton. But then a tough old day at Brands Hatch again. Rory was right up there at Snetterton, as I say, but battling with the likes of Turkington and Ingram. But then he wasn't really anywhere at Brands Hatch, so that was a bit of a shame to see. But I think the more he learns the car, the quicker he'll be. I think from what I've heard, whether it's true or not, I think he's had, in pre-season testing, there was a lot of work, him getting used to the car, because, it's funny because Tom Ingram, he has his car set up so, well for him because he likes it so loose. So to now have speed work setting the cars up for someone else, it's all a learning curve, and that's what you get in your first sort of, if you're moving teams or moving cars. So he's going to be learning with that with a new car. It's probably very different to the Ford Focus, which he was driving last year. But he's a very good driver, so he'll be right up there. He'll win a few races this year, I'd like to think. But yeah, he'll be one to watch as well. I think as he keeps a lot of these drivers are learning, and lots of the drivers are changed cars. So that was my opinion on the top 10 in the championship so far. That was how I'd rate their season. So I'd say, it's been an interesting one so far. Of course, that was just my opinion. I know all us British touring car fans are very opinionated. We've all got our views on different drivers and teams and cars. So, you may disagree, you may agree. And that was just my take on it. But we're now going to hear from you guys at home, some of the British touring car fans, some well-respected members of the British touring car paddock. It's now time for the BTCC fans' prediction. So what's your name?
My name is Hayley Bristow.
I'm Harry.
Dom.
My name is Mark Wagstaff, and I'm from BTCC Blueprints.
My name's Rich.
And who was your driver of the day at Brands Hatch?
I've gone for Tom Oliphant. I think he was perhaps a little bit of a surprise on the day, because obviously Colin has been the leader of the pack as far as the team is concerned. So I was pleased to see Tom Oliphant, and I thought, yeah, he was my driver of the day.
Oliphant has to be.
The driver of the day at Brands Hatch. Oh my goodness. It could have been so many people. It could have been Oliphant, Sutton, Ingram, Goff. If you did just ask me about race 3, it could have been Jake Hill. He went from 27th to 13th, but I think my overall driver of the day has to be Daniel Rowbottom for qualifying and getting his first podium in the BTCC.
I think I think it had to be Tom Ingram. He's in the new car. He's still getting to grips with it, and he looked like he'd been in it for 3 or 4 seasons. So yeah, very, very strong, very impressive.
I think it's a tie between Dan Rowbottom and Jack Goff. Jack Goff mainly because he's the only prediction I got right last time.
Who was the biggest surprise of Brands Hatch?
Oh, as a whole, I think it's got to be West Surrey Racing. I think Stephen Jelly had an up and down weekend. Turkington, I thought, was going to score more points, and Oliphant had a great weekend.
Now I'm going to say Colin Turkington because he didn't score everything. So that's why that was a surprise, really, because he wasn't up there.
Again, I think I'm going to go with Tom Ingram, purely because it's a new car. He had a good result at Snetterton, but he's just been finding his feet, and I didn't think he'd find his feet so quickly as he did at Brands.
For me, Goff, actually.
I've got to go with Turkington. I wasn't expecting him to struggle so much. Like I suspect a lot of people are the same.
Who's going to be on pole at Oulton Park?
I'm going for Josh Cook.
Well, I think that all depends on the weather, actually. I think if it's going to be wet, it possibly might be Sutton. I think if it's dry, it might be Ingram. I'm going to go for Josh Cook.
Jake Hill.
I'm going to go with Gordon Shedden. I think with it being an undulating course, I think ballast is going to come into it a lot. Flash doesn't have so much. So him or Rowbottom, I'm hedging my bets.
Purely because Simon Hill will get annoyed, I'm going to predict Jake Hill on pole.
And who's going to win race 1?
I'm going to say Shedden. He kind of needs a strong meeting to get his championship back on track. The same with Turks, really.
Gordon Shedden.
Jake Hill.
I think it's also weather dependent. I think, once again, if it's wet, it might be Sutton, dry, Ingram. I think it's going to be Jake Hill.
Ash Sutton, just. Again, ballast is going to come into it, but that boy is quick. Ash Sutton.
And who is most likely to win more than one race?
Jake Hill.
Ash Sutton.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm going to stick with Ash Sutton.
I'm going to stick with Shedden, although I don't think anyone will win more than one.
Who's going to score the most championship points?
I'm going to say Jake Hill will score the most championship points. They are definitely jinxed him now.
Jake Hill to score the most championship points, so that obviously we keep a tight-knit top 5. So then going out of this in whichever order, you've got Sutton, Ingram, Cook, Turkington and Hill, and just keep it a nice close top 5.
Jake Hill.
Going back to my first answer, Tom Ingram, nice and consistent. That car looks good. I think it's going to be well balanced, and he's going to score decent points in all rounds.
Tom Ingram.
Who's going to be leading the championship after the event?
Tom Ingram.
Oh, definitely weather dependent. If it's raining, Sutton. If it's dry, Ingram. Ingram.
I'm going to say Tom Ingram.
I think I said Tom Ingram. He's leading at the moment, I think, always close. Either way, Tom Ingram.
I think Ingram will be leading the main championship and Robo will be sewing up the Jacksons.
And what are you most looking forward to about Oulton Park?
Hopefully it'll be a bit more familiar for the likes of like Rick Parfitt, Jade Edwards and stuff, so they can get back in the points or score their first points in Rick's case.
Turkington roaring back!
For me, because I don't get to see it, it will be meeting clients and customers and hopefully seeing masses of fans there on the Saturday and the Sunday.
I'm looking forward to the BTCC being back. It seems absolutely ages since Brands. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be at Oulton Park, but I shall be watching it on the TV. So looking forward to all the thrills and spills that we usually get.
A full house of fans. Hopefully some nice warm weather for everyone. It's just going to be great to see what's going on off the track just as much as it is on track. Fantastic to see the fans back, and if you're going, enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much to all the guests on the British Touring Car Fans Prediction. It was brilliant as always, and if you guys want to, if anyone watching at home wants to get involved, please let me know. It'll be it's always interesting to see what you guys have got to say about the upcoming rounds. But we're going to finish the show by talking to a British touring car driver, a very current British touring car driver who's right in the thick of the action, Tom Oliphant. We spoke about him earlier. He had a brilliant Brands Hatch. So let's hear what he's got to say about that fantastic weekend at Brands Hatch last time out and his hopes for Oulton Park. Welcome back, Tom Oliphant. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, before I ask any questions, I just want to say congratulations, first of all, for the engagement with your partner, and of course, a fantastic weekend at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, thank you very much. Obviously, the first one I like to think was a bit more of a sure thing from the second, but it was a really nice experience actually, because obviously left off the back of a difficult Snetterton weekend. Obviously, I knew what was coming that week. Jen did not, and it all went very swimmingly, and she didn't really have a clue what was going on until I did it. So that was what I wanted. And we're really, really happy. So that's a real big positive. And then obviously moved on to sort of Brands. And I was absolutely determined to just get a good race weekend under my belt in terms of points, because, Thruxton, we'd shown great pace, a lot more pace than I thought I'd have at Thruxton, honestly. And we got very unlucky in race one, got taken out when I was sort of going from fourth to third through no fault of my own, and that kind of scuppered the race weekend. And then obviously race three, starting on the slick tyre, it rained, then didn't rain, then rained a little bit more. So we then moved on to Snetterton, again showed great pace. I didn't quite perform as well as I should have done in the second part of qualifying, and that cost me a P3 spot on the grid, but fought my way back through, and then obviously got taken out in race three again. So Brands Hatch was well needed, scoring 38 points. A little disappointed not to get a few more points in race three, but it was a mega weekend to get the first win of the season, to lead the second one all the way up until the last lap was good fun as well. So it was a mega weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you expect because obviously, you drove very well. The car seemed pretty strong as well. Did you expect it to go well around the Indy circuit?
Yeah, we'd done sort of 3 test days, 4 if you include one from sort of back end of last year, really, around that track. And that's sort of where most of our testing has been done. It's quite a nice track. You get lots of laps. Obviously, there's quite a few different corners, so you can try a lot of different setups. So I felt pretty confident that we would be quick. Obviously, going into the weekend with no weight helped that as well. But I also knew that 2 Halfords Hondas with no weight would be very quick as well. And that sort of proved to be the case. So I didn't think I was going to get it all my own way, but I certainly felt confident that I could have a very strong weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Well, obviously, race 1 went very well. Race 2 was certainly a busy one for you. You led so much of the race, had some very quick cars but behind you. Talk us through sort of what went on there for you really as a driver, because what is it like when there's, how do you manage the car when there's some really quick guys behind you on such a short circuit as well?
Yeah. No, race 2, I think, was my proudest sort of moment in touring cars so far, really. The top drivers are able to, win with 75 kilos on board and claim a race 2 victory. And going into that race, obviously, I'd had a bit of pressure from Gordon in race 1. Obviously, everybody's going to be lighter than me. So, I was delving into sort of the unknown, really, although we've tested with that sort of weight on board. I didn't know how I'd cope. But mentally, I approach leading a race, I suppose, in my own way. I don't necessarily try and pull a huge gap. I felt like there's a lot of racing goes on at Brands Indy, and a lot of laps, and a lot of accidents can happen. And obviously Stephen Jelly crashed in that race and I had to deal with a safety car restart. So I always like to have a little bit of tyre left come the end of the race, just in case I get a safety car and we bunch back up. So although I try and get a big storming lead at the start, which sadly was ruined by the safety car this time, it was sort of managing that gap. And it's very hard to pull away. Obviously, when a car's in your tow, it's quite easy for them to kind of stay there and challenge you. So my tactic's always been, and I did this against Ash last year, I did it against Gordon in race 1, and then obviously sort of Dan Rowbottom, Tom Ingram, Jake Hill, Ash Sutton, whoever was behind me in race 2 at Brands, was basically just assessing where they're strong, and putting my car in a position where they just can't challenge to overtake. So halfway through, I was having to drive a very front-wheel drive line out of certain corners to stop Tom Ingram and Dan Rowbottom and Gordon Shedden getting underneath me, especially out of the last corner. That's a strength of theirs. And I know that if I can get onto the accelerator first, coming out of the corner, then it's very likely that I'm going to be first into the next corner, and won't necessarily have to defend. So I don't necessarily try and defend if somebody's right behind me, but I definitely drive defensively, and just protect where I need to protect. And honestly, I thought I'd done a brilliant job in that race all the way through, and nobody really had an answer for it, bar the slight contact on the last lap, which cost me my second win of the season, sadly.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, brilliant weekend at Brands Hatch. We've got Oulton Park up next. Obviously, very different circuits. But what would you say your aims are for this weekend?
It has to be to carry on the positive improvement we made at Brands, really. I'm only carrying 33 kilos, so it's not a lot of weight. That's certainly the type of weight that you can still qualify right at the front with. I am only a few points behind Colin, a few points behind Jake. But quite a lot lighter. So, I feel good and confident going in, just like I did at Brands. I feel like we can be right at the front. My main aim is to put it on the front 2 rows of a grid in qualifying, like I did at Brands, and then, just to focus on that start really, and hope that, over the course of the first lap, I'm able to get into a podium position. I'm not really focusing, although it's my home race, and I'd love to get a race win on my home turf, especially with 40,000 people or however many is going to be there on race day, but I'm guessing it's going to be sold out. That would be amazing, but it's just about getting another 35, 38, 40 point round. If I can walk away with first, second or third points scored across the weekend, try and jump into maybe 4th, 3rd place if I can really have a mega weekend. Just kind of solidify my championship going into, Knock Hill and Thruxton, where anything can happen at Knock Hill. It could be wet. It's a quite hustly track, so the weight's not that important. So I don't really mind carrying a lot of weight going into there. But yeah, it's just about getting a good solid race 1. It's very hard to overtake around Oulton as well. So qualifying is ever more important. I think the Hondas will be traditionally quick. They're mega in sector 2. I think the BMWs and the Infinities will be good around sector 1 and sector 3. It's just breaking into Knickerbrook and all of that sort of jazz on the new tyre with the diff all locked up in qualifying. They're quite strong. So who knows? But yeah, it'll be a good race no matter what.
Yeah, of course. And actually, you touched on that there. I was going to ask, what circuit, what kind of cars does the circuit favour? Would you say it favours rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive?
I'd say Oulton Park traditionally has probably been more favoured towards rear-wheel drive. Obviously, we've got the hairpin in the layout that we use. Whenever you have a tight hairpin, rear-wheel drives often sort of find a benefit. Also, there's quite a lot of sort of medium speed corners around Oulton, quite a lot of bumps. You need good stability in the car, so sort of a longer wheelbase car would traditionally be better around Oulton Park, especially in sectors 1 and 3. Sector 2 is a bit different. Obviously, we've got Knickerbrook, and like I said, the Hondas have always been good there because they're a short wheelbase front-wheel drive car, and their change of directions able to be very strong. So I think in qualifying, it really is quite open. It depends on who puts a good lap in. However, in the races, it probably is more of a rear-wheel drive track over the course of the 3 races rather than a front-wheel drive. But sort of most of the tracks that I would class as rear-wheel drive have now become front-wheel drive. For instance, Croft is now a front-wheel drive track since it's been resurfaced with a nice grippy new tarmac. So, it's important. Here and Knockhill, I think, are sort of 2 of the rare sort of favouring rear-wheel drive circuits left on the calendar. And, it's important to try and score good points. But there's a lot of fast drivers with not a lot of waiting, so it's going to be a fascinating qualifying.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, thank you very much for coming and having a chat. It's always good to hear from a driver's point of view. And of course, best of luck for the weekend. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm looking forward to it, especially having all the fans back. It will be a great atmosphere.
Absolutely. Well, all right, then. Thank you very much.
No worries. Cheers.
Thank you very much to Tom Oliphant for coming on the show and having a chat. It's always good to hear what the current British touring car drivers have got to say about what's going on at the minute on track and off track, to be fair. So it's going to be an interesting one. I hope you all do enjoy Oulton Park. That's all we've got time for today. Thank you to all my fans prediction guests. As I say, thank you very much to Tom Oliphant. Enjoy Oulton Park. It's going to be brilliant. Hopefully it's going to be sunny. If you're going to be there, stay safe, but do enjoy yourselves. This is what we've been wanting, all the British touring car fans to be back, which is good to see. Thank you very much for watching. I've been your host, Louis Hedge. Thank you very much.